People argue about this fight all the time. Some say Jason Statham would destroy Steven Seagal. They point to his speed, his aggression, his explosive movie fight scenes. They say Seagal is older, slower, outdated. But that argument is built on movies, not reality. Because when cameras are off, when there are no stunt doubles, no choreography, no second takes, this fight looks very different. Jason Statham is fast, no doubt. He moves like a strike of lightning, sharp, aggressive, relentless. In films, that speed overwhelms everyone in front of him. But real fights don't reward speed alone. They reward timing. They reward balance. They reward the person who stays calm when chaos arrives. And that's where Steven Seagal enters the conversation. Steven Seagal doesn't rush. He doesn't posture. He doesn't waste movement. He waits. Because he knows something most people forget. The faster you attack, the more predictable you become. This isn't a fight between muscles. It isn't about who looks tougher on screen. This is a clash between two philosophies. Speed versus control. Aggression versus mastery. Noise versus silence. Jason Statham fights forward. Steven Seagal lets opponents walk into their own defeat. That difference is everything. People laugh when they hear this matchup. They underestimate calm men. They always do. But calm isn't weakness. Calm is confidence earned through experience. And Steven Seagal has decades of it. When fists start flying, panic reveals itself quickly. Breathing changes. Footwork breaks. Mistakes appear. Steven doesn't chase victory. He allows mistakes to happen. One wrong angle. One overcommitted strike. One moment of imbalance. That's all it takes. This fight wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be flashy. And it wouldn't last long. Because the most dangerous fighter in any room isn't the one moving the fastest. It's the one who knows exactly when not to move. And that's why, when people ask, Steven Seagal versus Jason Statham, who would really win? The answer makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Because reality doesn't care about hype. The environment matters in a real fight. No music. No slow motion. No cinematic angles. Just two men, standing across from each other, reading energy before a single strike is thrown. On one side stands Jason Statham, restless, sharp, constantly shifting his weight. His posture speaks first. He moves like someone who thrives in pressure, someone used to chaos. Years of high-intensity training show in the way he bounces lightly on the balls of his feet, ready to explode forward at any second. Jason's style is built on momentum, fast combinations, aggressive entries, overwhelming presence. He believes in striking first and never letting the opponent breathe. Across from him stands Steven Seagal still. No bounce. No wasted motion. His feet are planted naturally, shoulders relaxed, hands loose. To an untrained eye, he looks slow, unconcerned, almost uninterested. But that calm is intentional. Steven Seagal's fighting philosophy doesn't begin with attack. It begins with observation. He studies spacing. He measures balance. He waits for rhythm. Jason notices this stillness and interprets it as hesitation. That's a common mistake. Fast fighters often assume silence means fear. They don't realize that stillness can be a trap, one designed to expose impatience. Jason circles, testing angles, throwing small feints. A shoulder twitch, a half step forward. He's looking for reaction. Steven gives him almost nothing. That lack of response frustrates aggressive fighters. When speed isn't answered by panic, confidence starts to leak. Jason steps in harder now. He wants to force a reaction. His body language grows sharper, more assertive. He wants control of the space. Steven allows him to take it. This is where experience separates fighters. Jason's training is built for constant motion, striking, repositioning, advancing. It's effective, dangerous, and exhausting for anyone trying to keep up. But Steven isn't trying to keep up. His style is built to end exchanges, not extend them. Every movement Jason makes adds information. Every step forward narrows options. Every strike carries commitment. Steven is watching Jason's feet more than his hands. He's reading weight transfer, noting when balance shifts forward. He understands something crucial. Speed creates power only when balance supports it. Break the balance, and speed becomes a liability. Jason launches his first real attack, fast, aggressive, direct. A combination meant to overwhelm. Steven doesn't retreat. He steps just slightly offline. Not back. To the side. That small adjustment changes everything. Jason's momentum carries him forward, just enough to compromise his center. His punch doesn't miss by much, but almost is enough. Steven makes contact not with a punch, but with control. A grip, a redirection, a subtle turn of the wrist. The crowd watching this would barely understand what just happened. There's no dramatic impact, no loud collision. But suddenly Jason's posture changes. His shoulders dip, his stance narrows. Pressure replaces freedom. Jason reacts instinctively, trying to pull away, trying to regain space. But the more force he applies, the deeper he steps into Steven's structure. This is the moment where fighters realize the truth too late. Steven isn't fighting Jason's strength. He's using it. Every attempt to escape tightens the situation. Every burst of speed feeds the control. Jason's breathing changes. His movements become sharper, less fluid. Speed without balance turns frantic. Steven remains calm. His face doesn't change. His breathing stays slow. His movements stay minimal. This is where fights are decided long before anyone hits the ground. The setup isn't about who throws the first punch. It's about who dictates the terms of engagement. Jason came in expecting resistance. Steven offered cooperation. And that's far more dangerous. Because when someone allows you to move freely, you rarely realize you're being guided. Until there's nowhere left to go. The moment real conflict begins. Speed shows its true cost. Jason Statham doesn't slow down, he accelerates. Feeling resistance for the first time, he responds the only way fast fighters know how. More pressure, more movement, more aggression. His instincts tell him that hesitation is dangerous, that dominance must be asserted immediately. He snaps his arm back, resets his stance, and comes forward again, faster than before. A straight punch, a follow-up elbow, a low kick meant to disrupt balance. To spectators, it looks overwhelming. Jason is everywhere at once. His movements are sharp, practiced, and explosive. This is the style that wins fights quickly against unprepared opponents. But Steven Seagal doesn't look overwhelmed. He looks interested. Steven shifts just enough to avoid direct impact. Not large movements, small, efficient adjustments. His feet slide rather than step. His body stays upright, centered, controlled. Jason notices it now. The strikes aren't landing clean. The space feels wrong. No matter how fast he moves, Steven seems to be where Jason isn't, every time. That's when frustration creeps in. Jason increases his speed again. His combinations grow longer, more committed. He throws power behind them, hoping force will succeed where speed alone hasn't. This is the trap. Every extended combination creates openings. Every aggressive entry sacrifices balance for momentum. Steven doesn't counter immediately. He lets Jason finish the sequence. Then he moves. As Jason overcommits to a forward strike, Steven steps inside the line of attack. His arm rises, not to block, but to connect. He catches Jason's wrist mid-motion and rotates his body at the same time. The effect is immediate. Jason's forward energy is redirected sideways. His shoulders twist unnaturally. His feet scramble to catch up with his upper body. Steven applies pressure not violently, but decisively. A precise angle on the joint. A controlled drop of weight. The kind of movement that doesn't look impressive on camera, but feels terrifying in real life. Jason tries to pull free. Bad decision. The harder he pulls, the tighter the lock becomes. Pain flashes through his arm, sharp and sudden. His speed, once his greatest advantage, now works against him. Fast movements amplify pressure on the joint. This is when panic whispers. Jason changes tactics. He throws a short strike with his free hand, aiming for Steven's head. Steven leans just out of range, never releasing control. He steps again, this time behind Jason's center line. Jason's balance collapses. His feet cross for a split second, and that's all Steven needs. A controlled sweep. A shift of weight. A redirection downward. Jason hits the ground harder than he expects. The room goes quiet. Jason scrambles, trying to roll, trying to regain his footing. But Steven stays attached, maintaining contact, maintaining pressure. He doesn't rush to finish. He waits for the next mistake. Jason tries to explode upward. Steven counters with positioning. He drops his weight, pins the shoulder, and isolates the arm. The lock tightens. Jason's movement slows, not from exhaustion, but from realization. This isn't a brawl. This is a lesson. Jason's breathing grows heavy. His movements become desperate rather than precise. Each attempt to escape is met with another layer of control. Steven isn't chasing submission, he's allowing Jason to exhaust his options. And that's when understanding hits. Speed only matters when it creates advantage. Here, it's creating vulnerability. Jason finally pauses, just for a second, to reassess. Steven speaks calmly, almost conversationally. You move too much. There's no anger in his voice, no ego, just fact. That sentence lands harder than any strike, because Jason knows it's true. In that moment, the fight shifts completely, not physically but mentally. The conflict is no longer about who hits harder or moves faster. It's about who controls the outcome. And that control now belongs to Steven Seagal. The turning point in any real fight doesn't come with a loud impact. It comes with understanding. Jason Statham feels it first not as pain, but as limitation. His body is still capable of explosive movement, but his options are shrinking. Every direction he considers seems closed. Every attempt to create space is met with pressure before it fully begins. Steven Seagal doesn't tighten the hold. He refines it. That distinction matters. Instead of forcing submission, Steven adjusts angles by inches. He shifts his weight, changes wrist alignment, lowers his center of gravity. The control becomes more efficient, more exact. Jason realizes that resistance only worsens the situation. This is the moment speed loses meaning. Jason slows not because he wants to, but because he has to. He tests smaller movements now, probing for gaps. His breathing steadies as adrenaline gives way to calculation. Steven notices immediately. This is where most fighters make a mistake. They relax when the opponent slows, assuming danger has passed. Steven does the opposite. He becomes more attentive, more precise. Because calm fighters know something important. A wounded animal is still dangerous. Jason tries to shift his hips, looking to roll out. Steven counters by stepping around the head, keeping alignment. He uses gravity rather than strength, letting body weight do the work. There's no strain on his face, no clenched jaw, no wasted energy. This isn't domination for show. This is control for safety. Jason attempts a sudden burst, one last explosion of speed. He twists his torso and tries to yank his arm free. Steven responds instantly. A smooth rotation. A deeper lock. A firm pin. The message is clear. Escalation will be answered. Jason freezes. The realization settles in fully now. Steven has been ahead the entire time, not reacting, but guiding. Every movement Jason made was anticipated, allowed, and redirected. What felt like freedom was actually permission. Steven finally speaks again, quietly. Feel your balance. Jason does and understands the problem immediately. His center is compromised. His structure is broken. Any attempt to stand would expose him further. For the first time, Jason looks up. Not in anger. Not in defiance. But in acknowledgement. The room, once filled with tension, feels different now. Observers can sense it. The fight has crossed an invisible line. This is no longer competition. It's instruction. Steven eases pressure slightly, not enough to release, but enough to allow movement without danger. He gives Jason a choice. Fight the lock and risk injury. Or stop. Jason chooses wisely. He taps. There's no celebration, no victory pose, no raised hands. Steven releases immediately. He steps back and offers a hand. Jason takes it. As he stands, Jason rolls his shoulder slowly, testing it. There's pain but no damage. That, too, is intentional. Steven didn't want to hurt him. He wanted to end the fight. That difference defines mastery. Jason exhales deeply, a mix of relief and respect. He nods once, acknowledging what just happened. Speed brought him into the fight. Control ended it. The turning point wasn't the takedown. It wasn't the lock. It was the moment Jason realized he wasn't losing to strength or age or size. He was losing to understanding. And once that realization takes hold, resistance fades. Steven Seagal didn't overpower Jason Statham. He outthought him. And in real combat, that's the point of no return. Dominance in a real fight isn't about humiliation. It's about clarity. After the tap, the atmosphere changes completely. What was once tension becomes quiet respect. Jason Statham stands upright now, rolling his neck, steadying his breath. He isn't angry. He isn't embarrassed. He's processing. Because what just happened didn't feel like losing a fight. It felt like being stopped. Steven Seagal doesn't posture or circle for advantage. He stays where he is, relaxed, grounded. His presence alone dictates the space. That's dominance, not pressure, not intimidation, but certainty. Jason takes a few steps back, resetting. Habit kicks in. His instincts tell him to test again, to probe for openings, to reclaim ground, but something holds him back. Experience recognizes experience. Jason knows he was allowed to move, and that realization weighs heavier than any strike. Steven breaks the silence. "You're strong," he says calmly, "but strength needs direction. No insult, no challenge, just truth." Jason nods slightly. He understands the message. Speed without structure is noise. Power without balance is risk. Steven gestures subtly, inviting another exchange, but on his terms. Jason steps forward, slower this time, more cautious. He throws a measured strike. Controlled, exploratory. It's a question, not an attack. Steven answers immediately. He intercepts the arm, redirects the shoulder, and steps into Jason's center. This time there's no scramble, no struggle. Jason's balance disappears almost instantly. Steven applies pressure just long enough to prove the point, then releases. Jason stumbles back. Not from pain, but from understanding. The gap between them is no longer physical. It's philosophical. Steven's dominance becomes unmistakable now. He isn't reacting, he's deciding. He allows movement, denies advantage, and ends exchanges at will. Jason tries once more carefully. A feint, followed by a low entry. Steven counters with positioning alone, shutting down the angle before it forms. No strikes needed. The message is complete. Dominance doesn't always look aggressive. Sometimes it looks quiet, almost gentle, but it leaves no doubt. Jason steps back again and raises his hands, not in surrender, but in acknowledgement. "That's enough," he says. "The fight is over, not because one man can't continue, but because continuing would change nothing." Steven nods. He didn't win by breaking Jason. He won by removing options. That's the kind of dominance that lasts. Observers now understand what they're witnessing. This isn't about age or fame or movie reputations. It's about a lifetime spent understanding leverage, timing, and human movement. Jason's speed is still there. His strength hasn't disappeared. But neither matters without control. Steven turns slightly, disengaging fully. He has no need to prove anything further. Jason watches him, respect clear in his expression. In a different environment, rules, gloves. A referee, this might look different. But in a real encounter, without structure imposed from outside, the outcome is clear. Steven dictates distance. Steven dictates engagement. Steven dictates the end. That is dominance. Not loud, not violent, not theatrical, just absolute. As the moment settles, one truth becomes undeniable. You don't defeat speed by chasing it. You defeat it by owning the space it has to move in. And Steven Seagal owns that space completely. The fight didn't end with a knockout or a dramatic finish. It ended with understanding. And that's the strongest victory there is. The result of the fight becomes clear long before anyone declares it. There is no referee stepping in. No crowd screaming a decision. No dramatic announcement. The outcome is written in body language. Jason Statham stands quietly now, his breathing steady but deeper than before. His stance has changed. The restless bounce is gone. In its place is stillness, not forced, but learned in the moment. Steven Seagal remains exactly the same. That alone says everything. Results in real combat aren't measured by bruises or broken bones. They're measured by who controls the situation when it matters most. And control has already been decided. Jason takes a step forward, then stops himself. He knows what happens next if he continues. Speed will meet structure. Power will meet balance. Effort will meet efficiency. Steven doesn't challenge him. He doesn't taunt. He simply waits. That waiting is the result. Because when one fighter waits without fear, and the other hesitates despite being capable of more, the hierarchy is clear. Jason breaks the silence. You'd end it if you wanted to. It's not a question. Steven nods once. Yes. No pride in the answer. No satisfaction. Just honesty. That's when the result settles completely. Jason exhales and gives a small, respectful smile. He understands that continuing would only satisfy ego, not change reality. He lowers his hands fully now. I see it, he says. Steven steps back, creating distance not out of caution, but out of closure. The fight is finished because its purpose has been fulfilled. Observers might expect celebration. They get none. Steven's victory isn't something he needs validated. It's internal. It's built on decades of discipline, repetition, and restraint. Jason's loss doesn't look like defeat. It looks like education. In many fights, the loser is broken physically. Here, something else breaks the illusion that speed alone equals superiority. Steven speaks one last time, offering context rather than commentary. "Fast is good," he says, "but fast ends." Jason nods again. He understands now that real effectiveness isn't about how quickly you move, but how little you need to move to get the job done. The result of this fight isn't written on paper. It's written in memory. Jason will remember the moment his speed met a wall of understanding. He'll remember how every attempt to dominate created an opening instead. He'll remember that calm didn't retreat, it absorbed. Steven turns away, already moving on. That, too, is part of the result. Winners don't linger. As Steven walks, the lesson becomes unmistakable. In real confrontation, the person who remains calm dictates pace. The person who dictates pace controls outcome. And the person who controls outcome wins before damage is necessary. Jason watches Steven leave, respect replacing rivalry entirely. There's no bitterness, only clarity. The fight answered the question people argue about endlessly. Who would really win? Not the fastest, not the loudest, not the most aggressive. The one who understands when to act and when not to. That's the result. Steven Seagal didn't just win the fight. He proved there was never a need for one to continue. When people imagine fights, they imagine violence. They picture power, speed, aggression, and impact. They think the winner is the one who hits harder, moves faster, or looks more dangerous. Movies have trained us to believe that chaos equals dominance. But what this fight revealed is something very different. Real strength is quiet. Steven Seagal didn't win because he was louder. He didn't win because he was faster. He didn't win because he wanted to prove something. He won because he understood control. Control over space. Control over timing. Control over himself. That's the lesson most people miss. Jason Statham represented everything modern audiences admire: explosive speed, constant motion, relentless pressure. Those qualities are impressive. They win battles against hesitation. They overwhelm uncertainty. But they fail against patience. Patience doesn't panic. Patience doesn't rush. Patience waits for mistakes, and mistakes always come. The moment Jason slowed down, not from exhaustion but from realization, the fight had already ended. The body can continue. Ego can push forward. But once the mind understands it's outmatched, resistance becomes pointless. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Steven Seagal's victory wasn't about proving superiority over another man. It was about demonstrating a principle that applies far beyond fighting. In life, the loudest person in the room often feels the most powerful. But the quiet one is usually the most prepared. People who rush decisions, dominate conversations, and force outcomes often believe speed is control. In reality, speed without direction creates chaos, and chaos eventually collapses. Control, on the other hand, is sustainable. Steven's approach teaches us something uncomfortable. You don't need to announce strength. You don't need to display it. If it's real, it reveals itself naturally. That's why this fight resonates. It isn't just about two action stars. It's about two ways of approaching conflict, one driven by urgency, the other by understanding. And understanding always lasts longer. The real winner here isn't Steven Seagal. It's the lesson. A calm mind defeats a frantic one. A grounded stance defeats reckless motion. Experience defeats impulse. In a world that celebrates noise, the quiet response feels almost invisible. But invisibility doesn't mean absence. It means precision. That's why Steven walked away without ceremony. That's why Jason accepted the outcome without resentment. Because deep down, both understood the truth. Victory doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like restraint. So the next time you're faced with conflict, physical, emotional, or mental, remember this fight. Remember that you don't have to rush to prove yourself. You don't have to overpower every challenge. Sometimes the strongest move is to wait. Sometimes the smartest action is not reacting. And sometimes, winning means ending the conflict before it destroys anything at all. That's what real mastery looks like. If you believe calm beats chaos, comment, control. If you think speed still wins, comment speed, and tell us where are you watching from. Because real strength isn't about where you stand. It's about how you stand,